Hey everyone, this is Dr. Gail Carson, your host for Women in Business, a show that celebrates women and their accomplishments as entrepreneurs or senior managers. As a woman business owner for over 5 decades, I take great pride in bringing these interviews to you. My guest today is Lara Galloway. She's known as the Mom Biz Coach, a certified coach, entrepreneur, sought-after speaker, and frequent media guest. She has a strong social media reach that includes more than 24,000 Twitter followers, a blog talk radio show that boasts more than 4,000 downloads each week, and a weekly Twitter chat. She lives near Detroit, Michigan, with her husband and 3 children. Welcome, Lara, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, you know, I know that you've also written a book, Moms Mean Business, a guide to creating a successful company and a happy life. And I think that's what most women want to do. They want to be successful in their business life. They want to be successful in their family life and their personal life. So what made you decide to write the book in the first place?
Well, you know, it's one of those things, and I'm sure you've interviewed so many people on your show, and I've listened to a bunch of your interviews, and women, you know, we talk about one of the best ways to be successful and get to the top is to hire a coach or to hire a mentor. And, you know, this is a common practice among entrepreneurs and among corporate America and executives everywhere. Yet, not everybody has the resources or the willingness to do that. And so my co-author, Erin Babler, and I just realized that this is something that we feel, you know, when you look at the bookshelves in the bookstore, if you're looking for a book that says, you know, how do I create a business that is successful and yet make it support my life rather than compromising all the other priorities in my life. And, you know, with women starting businesses at the rate twice that of men, you would think that bookshelves would be full of this sort of a book. And we looked, and surprisingly, they weren't. There were self-help books, there were parenting books, there were plenty of entrepreneurship and small business books, but not a book that addressed these 2 concerns head on. How to be an expert, excellent mother and keeping your family priorities front and center while also growing a successful company.
So what can women who are moms want, you know, be able to learn from this book if they want to start their own business? What are the key points?
Well, it's funny. So we've had several of our friends and clients reading the book since it just hit the bookstores last week. And we've had them giving us some feedback, and they're saying, you know what, I skipped over chapters 1 and 2, and I went on into chapters, 3, 4, whatever. And we have exercises throughout the book that you're supposed to complete. And a couple of the clients said, yeah, you know, I skipped over chapters 1 and 2 because those are kind of hard, but I went right into like the business planning and the time management and the productivity. All that stuff is great. And I said, yeah, you know what? The thing is, the first 2 chapters of the book are probably the stuff you need the most. And the first 2 chapters of the book are all about figuring out who you are, what life stage you're in, how that impacts your priorities. You know, our priorities evolve. Wouldn't you say, Gail, over the years? I mean, when you're 20, do you want the same thing as when you're 40?
That's one of the things that I talk about when I talk about balance. As I say, balance is always changing. And my balance growing up was one thing. My balance starting a business another, getting married and having children another. Then when I went on the road traveling around the world, that's another. And then when my husband passed away, that's another. So it's always changing. But, you know, the interesting thing, the comment you first made, Lara, you said, women skipped over the first 2 chapters because they were too hard. Now, Is it that hard to figure out who you are? I mean, what did you find out from that?
Well, that's what is so surprising. And as a coach, it's the thing that it's the most powerful work we do. Okay. So I love doing marketing and branding and strategy work with business plans and product development and team development. I love that stuff. But that's easy. The easy stuff is like autopilot sometimes. But the really important stuff is, taking a look and saying, okay, so what are your top 3 priorities? Not the priorities of your partner, your parents, some book you read or some interview you saw on TV, not what the media tells us. What are your priorities? And, when I run into you and you're 95 years old and you are so delighted and excited with your life, and I go, holy cow, Gail, you did it. Like, you're amazing. How did you do it? How did you get this far? And how are you so happy? And you respond to me, you know what, Laura? My life is awesome. I can't even believe it. I ask my clients, what would it take for you to make that statement? And
I'm sure a lot of them don't know. I'm sure a lot of them don't know.
That's the kicker. They don't. We are not, as a culture, asking that question. That's not common for us. We can force ourselves to figure out how to write a business plan. Not most people don't enjoy writing business plans, but we can make ourselves do it. But holy cow, what is it going to take for you to say, I am so grateful that my life worked out exactly the way I wanted it to? That's a big question, and it takes support to get to the answer, and that's what we did. We crafted an exercise and a lot of teaching and learning and a lot of sharing from other mom entrepreneurs that we interviewed who have given some really interesting and different definitions of success, because it just doesn't look the same for everybody.
Wow, that is very interesting, because I do think, well, you said doing all of the branding and business plans and so forth is easy. I don't think a lot of people would think that either, Lara. I have to tell you, I think they would think, oh my gosh, where do I start? However, I do think that sometimes we're on such a rat race because it's been ingrained in us from the time we were kids. We've got to excel at these sports. We have to excel at our grades. We have to excel at if we want to get into college. I mean, there's just that pressure all the time.
Yeah.
So what is, how is being a mom entrepreneur different than being just a plain old entrepreneur? I mean, when I went into business, I was 21. I had never, I was almost fresh out of college, and I really had no business experience at all, but I went into business. I wasn't married. And then during, of course, staying in business, I got married, and I married a man with 2 children. So immediately had a family and got pregnant right away. So within 13 months of marriage, I had 3 kids under the age of 7 and a business to run. Yeah, that was really, I was married to a fabulous guy. So I was very, very lucky with that. However, what's the difference? Being a mom entrepreneur and just a regular one?
Well, I bet but I love the question. And I would say that one of the biggest things is that your 2 top priorities in life are now in conflict. And, if you have a family and most of us have a high bar for how we treat each other in our family, for how we spend time together, for how we do things, for how our household runs, for what our life looks like, for the big life events that we don't want to miss out on, and some of the tiny ones that we don't want to miss out on either. If all things were equal, most of us would choose to spend as much time doing that stuff as possible with our families, making those memories in those moments. But when you start a business, what I deal with my clients all the time is like, well, my husband's mad because, every night when I put the kids to bed, I sit down and turn on the computer and I start working. And, there's some distance in our marriage at this point, and it's not so great. And I feel kind of resentful because he's got to understand that I've got to, devote my time to this business, or I'm not going to get it off the ground. Or, my kids are acting out. I've got teenagers and they're, all over the place, and I'm not home enough, and I need to be there more. So these things start happening. And the difference about it being why it matters that it's a mom entrepreneur, the reason it's different for us is because we typically, and this is a generalization, but I've coached a lot of women in the last 10 years, and I'm friends with a lot of different humans who are men and women. And the fact is, generally, the women, the moms, wind up being the primary caretaker, the first responder, and the CEO, the chief everything officer, of all the invisible tasks and responsibilities that take place inside a home. So whether it's all the dental appointments, whether it's shopping for the clothes, whether it's donating to charities, whether it's logistics management to get everybody where they're supposed to be at the right time, any of that stuff, it falls squarely in our laps. So if you're going to take on running a business too, you have to actually consider the fact that all of those other roles and responsibilities are still there. And you have to come to terms with, a communication strategy and a support plan in order to allow yourself the ability to get the help you need to run 2 full-time jobs, your business and your family.
Well, I have to tell you, you're not going to, maybe our listeners are not going to want to hear this, but truly it never changes. It just gets different, because when a woman has elder parents and is responsible for elder care, she is still the one who is primarily responsible for this, even if it is the spouse's parents.
Yeah.
It somehow
even if they're in-laws, yeah.
Right. It's just the way it is. And I know very successful women who are doctors and lawyers and CPAs who are under stress all the time because they have all these other responsibilities. And you said something about, you have to prioritize and so forth. And I'm a big one for time management. I'm a big one for prioritization. People always say to me, how do you get everything that you do done? And it's because I am good at that. But what are some of your key takeaway tips for managing people's time?
Yeah. We have 2 chapters in the book that really are dedicated to this. And one is on time management and one's on productivity. And, because this is the number one challenge that a mom entrepreneur faces. The big, big hurdle for success is time. That's the one resource we can't make more of. We can make more money. We can make more friends. We cannot make more time. No matter how we slice it, it's still 24 hours a day. And so we've got to be time management ninjas. I mean, this is for my clients that already come in to working with me and have that skill, it's something we continue to refine and work on. For the clients that come to me and they're not great at managing their time, I'm like, okay, babe, we're going to the gym. We are going to work this muscle out because you absolutely have to build this up in your skill set. It's critical. And, I would feel like for anybody, when you look at all the different tasks and roles that anybody has, whether you're a man, a woman, a mom, not a mom, a dad, whatever, everybody feels overwhelmed. Everybody feels that pressure of a to-do list that's longer than we can get done. And our big secret, again, it's not a secret, is just starting with your priorities. When people look at me and they say, how do you get everything done? I say, I don't. I get everything done that matters. If you show me a woman or a man who works 80 hours a week on something that they have to do because someone else is dictating it as a priority, and I'll show you somebody pretty close to burnout. You show me you show me another person working the same amount of hours on something they are dedicated and committed to and they love, and I'll show you someone who tells you they are productive, that they feel productive. And the difference is aligning with your priorities. If you spend time on your priorities, you feel successful.
Well, that's so true. And it's interesting because, when you talk about, managing your time, and very often people do dictate how and what you do, but there's a little word called delegation. And delegation, I find that men do better at delegating than women do. Women are more possessive about what they do and how they do it. And the interesting thing is that delegation is not, do you do it like I do? Delegation is, do you do it well enough? That's the key. And so, you talk about hiring an assistant and should you or shouldn't you, and when should you know when you need to ask for help and choosing the right help. But again, women are very hesitant to hire an assistant because they just feel they have to control all of that. So where do you come in on that point as well?
Well, we put a whole document in the appendix of the book, to suggest different ways that you can hire a virtual assistant and different tasks that person can do for you. And I'm a huge supporter of that. But this was hard for me. And I got to tell you, when I went 3 years in my business before I ever hired anybody, and I was really struggling because I consider myself a smart girl. I like to learn. I like to teach myself things. I like to consider myself capable of doing most things. And if I don't know how to do something, I like to figure out how to do it. Well, that's great, except it was taking me forever to figure out how to, upload a photo to my blog.